think that that's one of my favorite parts of being a therapist. I, which you can see from my site, kind of grew up in the theater and acting world. And something that I always come back to is that I love improv and improvisation. And I love that about therapy, that people kind of show up and it's like, okay, what are we going to do together? And like, what is going to come out of this?
This is Therapist Clubhouse, a podcast for private practice entrepreneurs. I'm Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to Sarah Korda, a private practice entrepreneur in the Castro of San Francisco. Listen as we talk about how she took the plunge and started reaching out to the clients who are really the best fit for her and got off insurance panels. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So I want to talk to you about your entrepreneurial journey so far. And first, I wanted to start with the headline on your homepage, which I really love. So it says, "The way to find freedom from perfectionism is to be all of you." So will you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. I feel like this might end up being lots of shout outs for your course, because the place I actually found or discovered that headline was in your class that I took.
Oh, awesome. We did not plan that. But that's really great to hear.
Yeah, I think I so appreciated being given the space to kind of reflect and look at what kind of clients I was drawing into my practice, and then also who I love working with. And so that headline really comes from seeing that perfectionists are attracted to me. May take one to know one a little bit.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
And that, like, the relief that I've seen in my practice from when people can actually kind of get a little bit more distance and space from perfectionism or anxiety or shame caused by perfectionism really is this like groundbreaking, freeing, exciting time and moment, and kind of unraveling. I think it happens over a long time.
Okay, cool. So you were able to sort of take a deep dive into exploring who are these people who seem to do the best with me and are drawn to me, and then kind of reverse engineer, like, what are they responding to? Mm-hmm. What are they thinking about or ready for when they're first contacting me and getting to my homepage?
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's still kind of a work in progress, but that was what kind of I funneled down into, like, these are the themes that keep coming up over and over and over again.
There's something very cool too that I just noticed about your headline. So whenever I'm giving people advice about their homepages, I encourage, even though there's no one formula, I encourage people to look at including something about the client's problem, something about their hope, and something about what the key might be to get from one to the other. And I just noticed that your headline has all three in them. Because you've got freedom, which is the hope, you've got perfectionism, which is the problem, and then you're telling them one of the keys is to be all of you. So I'm almost hesitant to say that because nobody should try to do that. Nobody should try to have all three. I don't have all three in my headline.
Well, it certainly wasn't intentional. I think it was like intuitive and spontaneous and happened from kind of a conversation. And it was like, oh,
isn't that cool though?
So it's the best.
So tell us about who you're seeing. I mean, we've talked about how it's, what's kind of going on a deep level for folks, but what else do you want to say about who you're seeing in your practice?
So I see mostly individuals, and the range is, I'd say, like older teens through adults of a pretty wide range of age. And I have to say, I don't know that everyone would identify as a perfectionist at all. But I just saw that as kind of a theme of something I feel like, not to be too general, but something that I feel like our society is working on too. Like the way the kind of world tells you all these stories about like how you should be, and keeping up with kind of the American dream or capitalism, like that all kind of, I think, can plunge people into these like should places. And so I see that a lot in my practice. I also hold space in my practice for 2 to 3 queer couples So I felt like that was really important to hold space, because I just feel like there's wonderful couples therapy work going on all over the city, but it felt important to me to just kind of call out that I had a little space in my practice for that specific group.
Beautiful. And I know you, on your site, you kind of call out these 3 niches or 3 kinds of work: creative therapies, depth hypnosis, and queer couples.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone steps into your practice, how do you help them? I mean, obviously, if you're a queer couple, you're a queer couple. But, but other than that, how are you helping people know what direction they're going to go in with you?
I think that that's one of my favorite parts of being a therapist. Which you can see from my site, kind of grew up in the theater and acting world. And something that I always come back to is that I love improv and improvisation. And I love that about therapy, that people kind of show up and it's like, okay, what are we going to do together? And like, what is going to come out of this? So I think at the beginning, I kind of try to give a brief highlight of the way I work, and then really offer up that I'm going to offer these skills that I have and interventions, and creativity is kind of part of the way I think, like it's kind of in my DNA. So that's just going to happen. But also that I really want clients to collaborate with me and say like, oh, I want to try that, or like, oh no, that freaks me out. Like, can we go a little bit more slowly? So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I feel like that part of it is so fun. Like the discovery.
You improv it.
Yeah.
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 That's cool. And how did you identify, these are the ways that I want to work?
That's a great question. It's been a long process. Mm-hmm. I think, again, your class really helped me to look at what I was already doing and kind of be more real about it and be like, this is what I'm actually doing, instead of being like, I can do anything. Which I realize, at least for me, lands me in a really strange, vague, like no identity kind of place, instead of being grounded. And it's certainly not that what I do can't change, but that the kind of being really focused and real about what I am doing is really freeing for me as a therapist. So I think I just noticed, I'm very drawn to creative work. I am a drama therapist, and the program I went to had an emphasis in drama therapy. And then I've layered in kind of other arts practices, and I find depth hypnosis is highly creative also, because it's kind of just depends on how you look at it. But sometimes the way I frame it is like inviting people to go into their own imagination, basically, and discover where that leads them.
So you really decided to put your more alternative ways of practicing front and center, instead of allowing things to be vague or allowing things to be just kind of, falling into that eclectic soup that things can fall into. Yeah. I think that's so smart. It's
also very new for me. I think I was like sitting in the eclectic soup for a long time, being like, this is so much safer, and then it was like, but the soup's gross. Like it's like, or it's not my soup. I don't,
it's not my soup. Yeah, totally. And what was scariest about taking that plunge of getting out of the soup? I guess that's the wrong metaphor. What was scariest about unplunging?
I kind of love it. I love mixing metaphors. Like, where's it going? To be frank, it's getting easier since the launch of my website. I'm feeling kind of a rise in my my own professional confidence. But this transition of really niching down and being more specific has been so liberating, and then also at times really, really scary. Like, am I going to lose all these people who, I had a lot of fantasies about, like, people are going to read my new website and they're going to be like, well, this isn't me, current clients. And lots of weird narratives like that.
Yeah. I'm imagining that hasn't happened. Is that right?
No.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened. But kind of battling my own internal narratives around being more seen. And because in some ways, like this rendition of my website versus my previous one has a lot more self-disclosure, even in just like the style that it's representing my practice in.
Mm-hmm. So in what you say about yourself, but also just in the way that it reflects your personality more.
Yes. And in the way that I'm like calling on specific groups and saying, this is what I do, instead of kind of saying like, I can do anything, like just anyone who walks in, like I'm your girl.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like how you call out specifically queer couples, as somebody who's a member of a queer couple, if I see a therapist who has a long list of the different kinds of couples or kinds of issues with couples that they work with, and maybe queer or LGBTQIQ is going to be on there, that's really, seeing the list is really different than seeing someone say queer couples front and center. And I think both are okay choices, but I think there's some, bravery and effectiveness to how you're really saying, I want to work with this group. I work with you, this group. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that came out of this place of like wanting to be seen more and push myself to kind of be seen for what I'm actually doing. And also maybe like a little bit of another part of that is being more realistic about like what I mentally and just like having a busy life actually have time for.
Oh.
So not saying like, I want to see couples of like all these different types of couples, which I agree with you, and it can be lovely. And in some ways, maybe you get a little bit lost in the list. Mm-hmm. But also I'm holding space for that group, but it's not, I'm not saying like I have 10 slots open. And so also just being really clear about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just brought up time and space. How, as a business owner, are you balancing or just dancing with that tension between putting time into your business and taking space from your business?
It's another ongoing journey, I would say. I've been reflecting on it a little bit, I think, because of this interview coming up and knowing that I was going to talk with you and kind of thinking about, and I imagine this has to do with just being in private practice a little bit longer, but how I used to work much later, or I used to even come in much earlier. And part of that is starting to notice like my own bandwidth now and what I feel like I have time for, where I really can feel like I show up and engage with my clients in a way that I like have really good integrity around, instead of feeling like kind of maxed out. And I feel like that's always changing.
Yeah. What are you noticing now your more ideal hours are?
So I work Tuesday through Friday, and Tuesday and Wednesday I start a little bit earlier and then work into the afternoon. And then Thursday and Friday, I start a little bit later and work a little bit later, but only till 6.
Nice.
I go to yoga after.
Oh, good.
Which has become a major, major part of self-care. And I love to get my chanting on and do some yoga.
And so you do that you mean like on Fridays after?
Usually on Thursdays, sometimes Fridays, but Thursdays after. And yeah, like I'm very lucky that my office is right next to a yoga studio. So I just like go right over, finish and change.
Oh, what a great transition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What kind of yoga are you practicing?
I mostly practice vinyasa, a little hatha also. I've done yoga for most of my life on and off. My mom used to take me when I was like 5.
Oh, wow.
I'd make Snoopy do yoga poses in the corner. But I would say only in the last maybe 5 years or so have I become really connected to it in a different way and found that it really helps with the work-life balance and kind of transitioning out and moving people's stuff through my body and out.
Do you find that any of, I was doing yoga and I haven't been doing it for a while, but I feel like I'm remembering this. Do you feel like the yoga finds its way into your sessions?
Definitely. Definitely. I also feel like, there's a big connection between yoga and depth hypnosis. So that kind of feels like the link between breathing and even more somatic work, like just kind of noticing where things are coming up in your body, which I find is so interesting.
Yeah. What do you think your ideal number of clients per week is right now?
I'm thinking about that too. I knew you were going to ask me
I
that.
love specificity. So
Totally.
I want to know like what exactly works for people.
I feel you. It's funny. At the beginning of the year, I had set this goal of 20. And I've had times in my practice where I think it was maybe up to 26, which was really too much for me.
Yeah.
And then I've spent maybe the last 6 months more hovering around like 15, 16. And for a while that felt like, why am I not getting up to 20? Mm-hmm. No, I think now I'm more around 18, and 18 is feeling pretty good. So we'll see. 18 might be the magic number.
18 is the new 20.
Maybe. It's funny, as I do this longer and have more focus on, I don't know, balance and maybe quality. Not that I wasn't thinking about quality when I had 26 clients, but my goals are a bit different. I'm being a lot kinder with myself around knowing or feeling into like what feels like a good amount and exciting, and I want to go to work, and what feels like I can't. This day is already going to be too long.
Yeah, when we start feeling that little edge of dread, it's a sign. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. How do you think your clients are finding you?
So it does seem like the website launch is still pretty recent, but it does seem like that has already, I think it's been 2 weeks now or 2.5 weeks, and that's already brought in maybe 4 clients, which has been really great.
That is really good.
Yeah,
that's
really exciting.
Yeah.
And then I do get a decent amount of referrals from colleagues. I'm part of a lovely consultation group, and we refer to each other. And then another major referral source for me has been my graduate school, has been CIIS. I'm on a few different lists for their programs because they require students to do a certain amount of therapy. So that's been really amazing.
Yeah. Do you find that those students are really open?
Yeah, they're really excited usually and kind of ready to dive in, which is really fun.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I guess the other part of answering that question is that a major referral source of mine was insurance. And I recently am off insurance. And so that was another part of the deep dive into, because I got a ton of referrals from insurance companies.
Yeah.
So kind of being with that, I don't know what I would call it, like stillness or break a little bit more has been, I think, good for me, and also, sometimes challenging.
So you mean being with the stillness of you don't have to work quite as hard as you did at that point, or what do you
Both.
mean?
Thank you for clarifying. I think, that's a great part of it, is that I feel like I can focus more on actually being a therapist and less on kind of being a case manager or somebody who has to do a lot of paperwork, which is why I got into this part of our field in the first place. And also just I think it's a vulnerable place for me to not feel like the phone is ringing and the calls are coming in, and being on insurance companies kind of masked that place for me. I didn't really have to deal with what comes up around my own anxiety when business things aren't flowing to my liking, basically, which can change.
Yeah.
And so kind of learning how to take care of myself more in a business perspective, instead of just band-aiding it with I'll just hop on another panel so I have a little bit of a flow.
Yeah. And so there was a leap of faith you had to take there.
Yes.
Yeah. What would you, I'm going to ask you this in a more general way later, but what would you tell yourself if you were to talk to the Sarah that's still on panels?
I think in terms of my anxiety that comes up around it, I would just tell her, have a lot of nurturing mother energy. It's going to be okay. You're actually doing all these concrete things to boost your business. People are coming. The people who are coming are actually a better fit for you. Right. So it's not just about quantity of bodies on the couch, but also really feeling like you like the work that you're doing, which makes you have more energy for your practice and for your family and everything else. And then also maybe having empathy around, like, I still understand why I did that. But it was a little bit hard, just the transition out of it, like taking the training wheels off was a little hard.
Yeah.
And I was in a much different place when my practice started than I am now. I was working full-time somewhere else. So money wasn't really as much of a part of running my private practice as it is now, because I wasn't relying on it for income.
I like this idea that you can see that you may have needed to change your decision, but that doesn't mean that you have to punish yourself for your old decision. Yeah. Yeah. We're not good at that. That's really interesting.
Why is that?
Yeah. I guess it is that perfectionism that's baked into parts of our culture, right?
Well, and busyness too. Like you have to be so busy. I've really been coming up against that a lot for the last few years. Like, why? Really? Like, do I have to be busy? I don't know. Do I want to be busy? With what?
I'm really interested in this. And I know that there's a certain way that the math adds up, that the more a therapist works, the more money they make. But I think it's really good to question that that's just a simple equation. And that I know that there are a lot of people who, when they find a way to work less, not only are they happier, but they're finding a way to make at least as much money. So I think you're right. It's so important for us to question this busy equals productive equals valuable equals money thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that our lives, I mean, I feel extremely grateful and lucky that I like what I do so much, but that our lives are defined by what we do for work is kind of problematic, I think, sometimes too. Like, maybe it could be part of the pie, it doesn't have to be the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not all about what do you do? What do you accomplish?
Right.
But also, who are you?
Right. Yeah.
So anything that you've noticed, like any kind of hacks that you've noticed about balancing work and life? I know you did mention the going into yoga class on Thursday nights, which I think is brilliant. Anything else like that?
Yeah, yoga is great. I do try to go Thursday nights, my best one, because I go right from work, but I try to go 2 to 3 times a week is my sweet spot. Sometimes I get in phases where I'm like, I want to go every day, but it's not quite possible. Other hacks, knowing what I'm going to eat during the day, which is up and down for me. Sometimes there feels like there's time in the morning to kind of plan that out. And other times it's like, oh, I completely forgot that I'm a human being and not a robot. And I actually have to eat food to not be spacey and weird in my sessions.
Yeah.
So that's a learning curve. I think this is a pretty well-known hack at this point, but I love that I use Simple Practice, and I love that you can use your smartphone dictation tool to dictate notes. Because I don't often.
I did not know that.
You didn't?
No, that's awesome.
It's so great. I used to hate doing notes because I used to handwrite them all, like many of us, I think, used to. Yeah. And I don't bring my computer to work all the time. So being able to just do it on the phone and dictate them, I feel like it's
voice dictate them.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's the best.
I'm sure a lot of people listening are like, Annie, it's 2018. How do you not know this? But I did not know this.
Oh, it makes me feel good. I'm glad I'm spreading the dictation love.
Yes. Yes. So what are you charging these days?
I am charging $180 for 50 minutes.
And how are you feeling about your fee?
I feel great about my fee. You definitely helped with that. And I'm trying not to get too into, I feel like money brings up so many things. And what it's bringing up for me right now is that, although that is what I'm charging, I'm not quite there yet with a lot of clients. And so I have a little bit of some kind of story about that. Like that maybe listeners will be like, oh, all of her people are at this level or something. So there's a transition happening, I guess.
Well, I mean, if it helps at all, Sarah, I think that's true for all of us. I'm sure there are a few people that's not true for, but because we work with people so case by case, I feel like it's really rare that therapists raise all of their folks when they come up with a new fee. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I think generally it feels really good though. It's helped boost my confidence and just feel stronger in what I'm doing and feeling like it's worthwhile. And
awesome. Great.
Also being more upfront about it on my website has been helpful because I think I used to say like, I have a very competitive rate, like call me, and it's nice to just kind of be like, this is what it is. And if somebody needs to talk about it with me, I can talk about it with them, but that it's just kind of transparent and out there.
Very nice. And so if you, now in the more general way, if you could think about the Sarah just starting out in private practice, what would you want to tell the Sarah of that time?
I love that question so much. I guess I would want to really continue to align with like her playfulness and excitement about just like being in the room and seeing clients and be like, yeah, like that's go for it. That's great. And then also to just bring in this business piece, like to kind of, because I think I'm very organized, but I don't think I quite understood what it is to be an entrepreneur or to run your own business. So I think I would give her advice about that and just kind of setting up systems and kind of structures to make that almost more stable and safe so that she could really feel comfortable to have more freedom and kind of do her thing. It kind of came the other way a little bit.
So you'd encourage her to just step into that and embrace that more.
Yeah, because it was really, and part of it has to do with, and I'm sure others share this journey, but not even feeling like, it was just like, oh, this is something I'm doing on the side to like escape my bureaucratic county job. And like, this is so great. And I totally still, would probably feel that way if I was in the same situation. But something about that, and then just not having much business focus in graduate school or even in the internships that I was in, because I didn't really have any private practice internships, didn't quite set me up for knowing what that meant. It was kind of like, oh, I make, whatever it was then, like $35 an hour for the county. So if I'm making $60 an hour from Cigna, like that's great. Not even thinking about like, oh, but I pay rent and I, this and this and this.
Yeah.
Those basic kind of structural things around business.
Beautiful. So what is the best place for therapists to find you and throw compliments at you, Sarah?
Oh, that's so nice. My new website, sarahkorda.com.
Awesome. And so will you spell it for us?
It's SARAHKORDA.com.
Great. And it's going to be in the show notes, but just in case people want to just look at it right away.
Thank you.
So this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for doing this deep dive with me. Really appreciate it.
I so appreciate you and everything that you do for us entrepreneurial therapists. It's hard to say that word.
Entrepreneurial therapists. I kind of go,
but I really appreciate you a lot, Annie.
Oh, thanks so much, Sarah. Thanks for listening. Registration for the Superpower Method for Therapists group program is open right now until September 20th. We'll go through a 12-week process together. You'll get clear on your right fit clients and your niche. You'll identify your superpowers and how to use them in your business. You'll create a marketing plan based on those superpowers and your right fit clients. And you'll figure out where your practice is going next. To learn more about the program and hear what some participants have to say about how the program impacted their businesses, go to coachingwithannie.com and click on the Superpower Method. If it's time to build your business into something unique and profitable, let's get started. You'll have 7 homework assignments designed to help you transform your business, one due roughly every other week. You'll have 7 Q&A calls with me and sometimes with guest teachers. You'll get an individual consult with me, and you'll have 8 bonus office hours calls with superpower coaches who are there to support you and answer your questions throughout the program. Then you get free ongoing support in our exclusive alumni program after the 12-week program ends. So as you can hear, we are really committed to supporting you through this program and afterward. Go over to coachingwithannie.com and click on the Superpower Method. I will see you next week.